Then I took a smidge and applied it down there.
This one's wife. It's not me, it's a conspiracy. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. It's never the narcissist's fault, you know. No, we're just misunderstood. People regularly like to blame us for all of the things that go wrong in life. It's most unfair. The narcissist can never be at fault because an admission of fault demonstrates accountability, culpability, liability. All of that means that it creates a shackle on the narcissist's ability to do whatever they want, and thus it threatens control. And as you understand by now, one of the most important things to the narcissist, albeit they don't realize that in the majority of cases, is that they need control. The narcissist needs to control everybody that they interact with. And the sense of interaction is wide. Interaction will cover thinking about somebody, talking to somebody, seeing somebody, being in the same room as somebody. Whenever there is that interaction, the narcissism's job is to ask, is this appliance that our narcissist is interacting with under control? Yes, no, or don't know. Then, dependent on the answer, appropriate steps are taken to either maintain that control or to obtain it. The narcissist is hypersensitive to threats to control. The narcissism, like that background app I so often mention, is in effect scanning the behaviours of those around the narcissist to ensure that they're exhibiting the appropriate signals to show that they are under control, and if they do not, then the narcissism will guide the narcissist to take the appropriate response to ensure that control is maintained and recovered. Any suggestion that the narcissist is at fault offends that notion of the need for control. Therefore, suggesting that the narcissist is useless at their job, or is a bad person, or that they are a cheat, or that they're not popular, and so many other allegations and accusations besides, all offend that need for control. The result of this is that the narcissism causes the narcissist to believe it's not my fault. It's either something else's fault or somebody else's fault. Thus, the narcissist engages in blame shifting, and the efficacy of that blame shifting varies dependent upon the circumstances of the type of narcissist that you are dealing with. Some narcissists will come out with some right cock and bull nonsense, which you think to yourself, that really doesn't stack up. In other instances, it has the width of plausibility, and then again, with certain narcissists, it seems wholly convincing, and you accept what you're told. This one's wife, typical of the narcissist that she is, can never, ever accept the fact that she is a talent-free, charisma-free nobody who is only known about by virtue of the fact that she got entangled with old Fanta pubes. Beyond that, she would be a nobody, hawking herself around in relation to trying to get some gigs on television and quite possibly engaging in the less salubrious behaviours in relation to hawking her body around for dosh, as has been the allegation levelled against her on many occasions. Thus, she cannot accept any form of criticism that's directed at her. She is unable to handle the truth, or the majority truth, from the majority perspective of how her clothing doesn't fit her, how she has nothing meaningful to say, that she's largely unpopular. Her narcissism will not allow that to compute. And therefore, when something goes wrong in the world of this one's wife, the narcissism simply tells her, well, it can't be your fault, you're brilliant. Therefore, it's Harry's fault, she cries, or it's the agent's fault, or it's the fact that the moon is only a half moon, it's its fault, or it's that dog's fault that I walked past earlier today, or it's King Charles's fault, or it's the nemesis's fault, or it's my father's fault, or it was that man in the shop because he looked funnily at me. The fact is, her narcissism will repeatedly tell her that it's not your fault that you're failing or that you're criticized. It's something else and somebody else's fault. This invariably cultivates an air of paranoia and also some absolute out-there thinking in relation to certain narcissists. And this is now being exhibited as a consequence of a report that has come from Radar Online, written by Aaron Johnson. As always, I'll leave it up to you to determine the veracity of the material. I'm providing you with the analysis of this material. The report states, fame-crazed Duchess, this one's wife, is crying, boo-hoo, after David and Victoria Beckham beat the Sussexes in the TV ratings game. Now, pausing there, the fact that somebody else has beat her in the TV ratings game wounds her, because after all, she believes that she's the best. Thus, this amounts to a threat to control, so the narcissism has to do something about it. She cannot sit there and think to herself, well, they're much more likeable people, they're just as famous as I am, but their show was more interesting and better put together, so yeah, it's understandable why they beat me. Also, I'm not particularly popular these days, so I get it that more people would watch what they do rather than what I would do. Yep, makes sense. Now, I'll go and have an oat latte. Her brain doesn't work like that, because that would mean that she would be accepting responsibility, and therefore that would mean that she's ceding control to the Beckhams. That cannot happen. Instead, her narcissism has to tell her that something else has caused the failure, not her. The article explains that this one's wife is claiming, without any proof, that her former friends somehow managed to manipulate the numbers to hurt her already plummeting popularity. Thus, there's a conspiracy to do down this one's wife by the manipulation of the numbers. There's no evidence to support this. This is completely preposterous paranoid thinking on the part of this one's wife, but it is eminently believable that a narcissist such as she would go there because her narcissism cannot let her accept that she's the one that's the problem. Sources revealed that Prince Harry's 42-year-old diva went into a downward spiral over news that the Netflix documentary Harry and This One's Wife is tanking and now has been eclipsed in ratings by the 4-part series Beckham. This one's wife's all over the place, tipsters dish to us. Apparently, she's been really affected by these bad Netflix ratings, and her friends are saying she's looking to pin the blame on anybody she can think of. To validate the theory, she and Harry have been sabotaged. So, Occam's razor, which, if you're not familiar with it, simply states that the simplest explanation is most likely to be the explanation, and therefore, what's the most likely explanation for the reason that the Beckhams have beaten her in the ratings? It's twofold. They're popular and it's an interesting programme. Her programme isn't interesting and she's unpopular. There you are, solved it in a sentence. But no, that would mean that her accepting that somebody's better than her. That means her accepting that she's not popular. That means her accepting that her show was pants. That threatens her need for control. Therefore, the more likely explanation in the wild and wacky world of This One's Wife is somebody is out there trying to sabotage me and Harry, and it's likely to be the Beckhams. Yes, I can see it now, that they've got together in one of their London properties. Victoria there is probably wearing a t-shirt saying, "I hate this one's wife," that she's bought from that awful man, H.G. Tudor. And David is there using his hacking skills to manipulate the numbers. Yes, he's already hacked into Netflix HQ to massage the figures, and that's why they're ahead of us. Absolutely makes perfect sense. British expatriates David 49 and Victoria 50 were once among Harry and this one's wife's closest Hollywood pals, but the relationship reportedly cooled over claims the soccer legend and the former Spice Girl leaked stories about the renegade royal couple to the press. Now, spies claim fingers are being pointed at the Beckhams again, this time over an alleged plot to one-up the beleaguered Duke and Duchess by garnering better TV ratings. You see, it's a conspiracy, a plot. "It's completely irrational," declared one tipster. "The Beckhams have nothing to do with ratings. But the word is, this one's wife convinced they're conspiring to put them down in order to lift themselves up. The fact that the Beckhams' ratings are making this one's wife's efforts look like a laughingstock has got to be a real kick in the teeth," the source added. According to the Mole, the animosity between the couples was amplified when David recently announced he was teaming up with Harry's dad Charles by becoming an ambassador for the King's Foundation. "It's very clear whose side David and Victoria have taken in this ugly battle," the source noted. "They're not even pretending to play the middle." Thus, this one's wife, rather than accept that it's all her fault, comes up with this bizarre conspiracy theory that the Beckhams have somehow had access to the figures, have massaged them in order to make them look good and her to look bad. I'll leave it up to you whether you believe this information, but certainly it's entirely conceivable that a narcissist such as this one's wife would engage in such crazy thinking, again, driven by her narcissism. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.